Minister Nunes Ferreira is the foreign minister. He was here before in another delegation with the Minister of Defense. And he has remained in contact with the Guyanese Minister of Foreign Affairs. It's a very important meeting. Not only is it an occasion to celebrate the 50th anniversary of relations between the two neighbors, but also there's a changing strategic scenario in northern South America. And in this regard, we felt it was extremely important to renew our relations with Brazil. As you know, Guyana has a 1,300-kilometer border with Brazil, and under President Lula, a bridge was actually constructed over the Takutu. For financial reasons on both sides of the border, we have not been able to fulfill our dreams of infrastructural integration. But there are several other areas of concern. One, of course, is the situation in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. As you know, thousands of refugees have gone south into Brazil. Many more have gone into Colombia, and some have come into Guyana and also to Trinidad and Tobago. So we need to have a common approach to dealing with this humanitarian crisis. The situation also is changing in the hemisphere and in the world. As you know, the United States government, the United Kingdom government, the European Union have all been affected by some economic changes, and they will eventually have an impact on Guyana. In that way, it is necessary for the two neighboring states to coordinate their positions so that there is some convergence of views. We've always had cordial relations with Brazil at a strategic level. We committed to ensuring that the continent remains a zone of peace, and we don't want any instability to disrupt peace on the continent. As you know, when there's instability, sometimes coming from strange sources, it may be from a hurricane, it may be from a volcano, and you have a large movement of migrants away from the disaster areas. And this in itself, although it may seem to be humanitarian, may end up having strategic or security consequences. So in this way, the two countries, Guyana and Brazil, need to coordinate their activities. From an environmental point of view, Guyana, as you know, and Brazil are part of the Amazonian system, and sometimes, you know, Guyanese wonder that the rain is not falling but the rivers are rising. So southern Guyana, particularly Rupununi, has been subjected to floodwaters over the last 6 weeks or so, and it is apparent that the flooding is not something which is generated in Guyana. So we need to look across the borders. As I said, you know, animals don't stop at the borders, the water doesn't stop at the borders. So Guyana and Brazil need to work together to make sure that there is environmental security and also environmental protection of our flora and fauna. So we're looking also at sustainable development. We're looking at ensuring that on both sides of the border, standards are applied so that when people start to move freely, you know, the regulatory framework is in place. So those are some of the principal areas that we covered in my brief, I would call it the contextual meeting, because he left my meeting to go to a more detailed meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, where they will discuss infrastructure, petroleum, and other fields of cooperation.
Sir, as you mentioned, this year you're celebrating 50 years, and during that 50 years of relations with Brazil, we would have had cooperation in a number of areas, including the drilling of wells, particularly in Region 9, which suffers from drought as well. And when you went in December, you had discussions for support in the oil and gas sector. As we celebrate 50 years, are you looking to strengthen these areas and probably push more cooperation in the said areas?
Well, the cooperation has been very wide indeed. You know, as I pointed out, I was one of the first 2 military officers to be trained in Brazil 49 years ago. So we had defense cooperation since 1969. But it has gone into fields of education, it's gone into fields of agriculture, infrastructure development, and you'd be surprised the amount of interaction that has taken place at the level of ordinary residents moving to and fro. Many residents of the communities, would go across to Brazil for medical treatment. And some people probably enjoy dual nationality. You can never tell. Some of the Amerindian tribes, the Wapishan and Makushi particularly, are split. So they have relatives across the border. So there are many areas of interaction. But what we're looking at now is the future. We're not looking at the past. And we feel that the relations now between these 2 mature republics should be put on a sounder footing.
Sir, lastly, Brazil has been one of the more vocal persons with support, countries rather, with support for Guyana on the Guyana-Venezuela controversy. Could you say if that was discussed during the meeting, and did you record Guyana's appreciation for that?
Well, it was discussed. It's a very important element in Guyana's strategic posture. Brazil is the largest state on the continent of South America, and from the start of the controversy, Brazil has made it clear that it had no interest in redrawing the borders with any states. Brazil has border with every state on the continent except 2. So once people start tinkering with borders, it would be an enormous headache for Brazil. So Brazil put its foot down from the start, and I think that was an important factor in convincing our neighbors that there would be no land grabbing on this continent. So we're very grateful to Brazil. Itamaraty, which is the Brazilian Ministry of External Affairs, has always been known for taking a principled position and has never varied. There's going to be no land grabbing on this continent, and it has been a guarantor of Guyana's territorial sovereignty.